Wow. Great.
So I'd like you guys to take a second, think of yourself as a 19-year-old Russian soldier, thousands of miles away from home, trapped in a frozen city with no food, no supplies, and death lurks around every corner. So this was the reality for hundreds of thousands of people during the Battle of Stalingrad. And the events that took place from August 23rd, 1942 through February 2nd, 1943 shaped the course of modern history. So a little bit about me. I love World War II history. Growing up, I always thought that the United States was the reason we were victorious in Europe. However, through a little bit of research, I learned that that isn't the case. Soviet Union, and more specifically the Battle of Stalingrad, is the main reason why we don't speak German in America today. So through this battle, we're going to learn the significance and the impact that this battle had and then the outcome of World War II. And we're going to learn that through its lead up, the battle itself, Operation Uranus, and the aftermath. So the lead up to the battle, Operation Blue. This was directed by Adolf Hitler to have the 6th Army led by General Frederick Paulus to push east into the Caucasus to seize key oil fields. However, Hitler changed his mind. According to the historical website Daily History, Hitler ordered the 6th Army to advance towards Stalingrad even though it lacked strategic value. So to Hitler, Stalingrad was more symbolic because it bore the name of Joseph Stalin. And because of this, he became fixated and obsessed with capturing the city. He ignored the advice from all of his generals, and this ultimately led to a mass amount of destruction and death. So, the Battle of Stalingrad begins August 23rd, 1942, and lasts for over 5 months. And this battle would result in one of the bloodiest and deadliest battles in human history. Once the battle started, Stalin made it clear that this is going to be a fight to the last person, to the last drop of blood. He also ordered that all civilians were to remain in Stalingrad because he thought his soldiers would fight harder knowing that they're defending women and children. So after a few days during the battle, the Luftwaffe began one of the largest aerial bombardments in the history of the Eastern Front. A quote from Dan Carlin's podcast, Hardcore History, Ghost of the Ostfront, quote, "This campaign becomes one of the most ferocious bombing attacks ever to occur on the Eastern Front. More than 40,000 civilians die in the first 48 hours. Following the bombing of the city, the Germans begin their offensive." Another quote from Dan Carlin's podcast, Hardcore History, Ghost of the Ostfront. He says, "The city's become a nightmarish place. The bombings that were supposed to soften the enemy instead turned the city into a pile of ruin, a paradise for defenders." The next 5 months resulted in close-quarter armed combat that the world has never seen before. The Germans called this Rattenkrieg, or in English, Rat War. So after months of fighting, the Germans slowly progressed through Stalingrad with costly casualties. An article from Britannica states, "At one point, the Soviet forces were backed into a 9 by 3 mile strip of land along the Volga River. At this point, the Germans could taste victory. However, the Russian forces held on until finally reinforcements came. On November 19th, 1942, General Zhukov launched Operation Uranus. And this operation was the encirclement of the German 6th Army. This operation had incredible success. A blog from the Reagan Presidential Library says, "The exterior defense lines of the Germans in Stalingrad were largely composed of inexperienced, ill-equipped Hungarian and Romanian soldiers posing little threat to the Soviets." By November 23rd, the 6th Army was completely encircled. Over the next 2 months, the Germans would freeze and starve due to the lack of resupply and the arrival of the Russian winter. On February 2nd, 1943, General Paulus surrenders to the Soviets. The aftermath. So the first thing, morale took a huge hit for the Germans. This was their first major defeat in World War II. Because of the failure of Operation Blue, the Germans were unable to get the key oil that they needed to run the German war machine. And this ultimately resulted in their defeat. And after Stalingrad, the Germans were on the retreat until their final surrender in May 1945. So this wasn't just another battle. This was the turning point for the war. This battle changed everything about World War II. So understanding the lead up to the battle itself, Operation Uranus, and the aftermath, this battle shaped the outcome of World War II in the Allies' favor. In conclusion, 2 million civilian and military casualties occurred during this battle. This is a battle that the world has never seen before. This is something that we today is a number that we cannot comprehend. But for the Soviet Union, this was reality in the years 1942 and 1943. But because of their courage and sacrifice, the impact of this battle will last for generations. Thank you.